Welcome to the Cloud Forecast, a managed services podcast from NTT. Today, Scott Goolik is back to talk to us some more about future-proofing your SAP Access Controls. Just a quick reminder, my name is Chris Peralta. I'm the Marketing Content Manager of Managed Cloud and Infrastructure Services, and Scott Goolik is our VP of SAP Security and Compliance. So let's get started. Scott, last time we talked about how organizations need to future-proof their investment in their SAP Access Control solution by considering S/4HANA Fiori apps and the HANA database. As organizations migrate to SAP Cloud apps, what are they doing to assess potential risks outside of S/4HANA?
Well, and Chris, I think what we're seeing as a trend in the industry is a lot of companies are moving critical processing that may have previously existed inside of their ERP platform, like the SAP ECC system, over to the new SAP Cloud apps. So as an example, if you start looking at the processes, maybe you're using Ariba for some of your logistic processing, some of your procurement. So if that data is getting pushed to Ariba, and all of a sudden users that were doing some of the procurement tasks inside of ECC, instead of doing it in S4 and now doing it in Ariba, we have to consider the access that someone has in that system. And so what we recommend is as companies are deploying these processes in the cloud apps and whatever cloud app it may be, look at where you could have compliance impacts. What could impact your audits, your financial statements? What impacts the products going out of the organization, procurement going in, any of those areas where they're ripe for fraud. And when you're looking at an access control solution, you want to make sure you've got one that can address not just your needs inside of S/4HANA and the HANA database like we talked about last time, but you want to make sure that you've got something that can address those challenges inside of the cloud app. And hopefully you're looking at an access control solution that has an out-of-the-box segregation of duty rule set or a critical action rule set as well, so that you can truly understand what the potential risks are and evaluate what people have access to within that cloud app. From there, you're looking at controls that you can run a risk analysis, checking what people have access to, understanding those potential segregation of duty risks, working with risk owners to come up with compensating controls. Obviously, we do have the scenarios where it's a small location, and in Ariba, we may have to have someone that has the ability to run conflicting portions of a business transaction. And that's fine as long as we've got a control process in place that we can document and sign off on it.
Thank you, Scott. Here's your next question. While assessing potential risks within SAP Cloud apps is important, it's mainly a detective control. What are companies doing to proactively address potential risks within SAP Cloud apps?
Well, and I think that's a great challenge that organizations are facing. So it's one thing to run a point-in-time risk analysis, but it's only as good as the current data in the system. And obviously, users are changing, jobs functions are changing, entitlements are changing. And anytime that occurs, all of a sudden, what you thought you knew from a segregation of duty perspective has just changed. In that scenario, we need to integrate the compliance checks as part of the user access management, the change management process, so that we're keeping our arms around potential risks as the access is changing. When we look at compliant user provisioning, of course, we want to be able to check for risks inside of an S4 system. But if someone's able to create a vendor inside of S4, and that vendor automatically gets pushed over to Ariba where they go and cut a purchase order to the vendor, that's where we need to be able to cross the systems, cross the platforms, and look for potential risks. As part of the provisioning process, when people are getting additional capabilities in these cloud systems, we need to be able to look at the entitlements that they're getting, understand what actions they're getting access to, and then be able to relate that into a broader segregation of duty analysis so that the approvers know what potential risks there are. And if we are introducing risk, and maybe it's risks entirely within a target system like Ariba, or maybe it's the cross-platform risks as I was describing between S4 and Ariba, we want to make sure that we're getting a sign-off by the control owners, assignment of a compensating control, and really trying to just stay in continuous compliance because we're including it into that provisioning process. So the provisioning process is one piece of it. We also need to look at periodic access reviews. So as we're going through and reviewing access in the S4 system, we need to consider any of the cloud apps and look at what access people have there and make sure it's still appropriate for their job functions in the organization. So again, looking for an access control solution that can address both your needs inside of the S/4HANA system as well as the cloud apps is key to simplifying the process for your approvers and for those reviewers. Being able to push a consolidated report saying that these are your people, here's the access they have, and being able to capture a sign-off from them that the access is still appropriate is critical for your access control strategy. And if by chance you've got HR master data out there in either SAP HCM or SuccessFactors, you'd be able to really integrate that data in your access control strategy. This is key because we can then look for terminations inside of HR, look for hired employees, look for position changes, and use that to drive access requests. So if someone's terminated, obviously terminating their access, and we want to do that not just in S/4HANA, but in all the cloud apps as well. And if they're changing positions, perhaps we want to push a notification out to their new supervisor indicating here's the access that they had before. Is it still appropriate for their job? And if we find hires, that would be looking at any birthright access that may be granted across S/4HANA or any of the cloud apps.
Thank you, Scott. And here's your last question. How does mcis enable an organization to future-proof their investment in an access control solution with regards to SAP Cloud Apps?
So we've made a large investment in ControlPanelGRC to be able to connect to these SAP Cloud Apps because we are just seeing a trend of customers using more and more of them integrated with the S4 environment. As a result, we have functionality out of the box that would allow customers to do segregation of duty analysis against Ariba, Concur, SuccessFactors, and Cloud for Customer, or C4C. This includes out-of-the-box rule sets so that we've got a simplistic way of connecting via our universal adapter infrastructure. The data gets pulled in from those target systems and then is available for analysis, either standalone, so checking a system like Concur on its own, or combining it with the access inside of S4 or any of the other systems. The risk analysis is just one part of that. We also need to be able to do the user provisioning. So within user provisioning, we can process access requests, create users, change users, add entitlements, terminate users across all of those systems. So again, that's Ariba, Concur, SuccessFactors, and Cloud for Customer. And be able to do those periodic access reviews. Same systems and same concepts. We're looking at the entitlements that users have, being able to understand what their job function is today, let managers review that, and then be able to request changes as necessary. And lastly, something specific in SuccessFactors, we can integrate with the HR master data in there. So being able to read employee master records, non-critical, non-sensitive data for our employees that would help us understand where they reside in the organization, who their supervisors are, when were they hired, when were they terminated, and understand what their position is in the organization. Those positions can actually drive access assignments. So we could set up position-based security. If I'm hired in as a procurement clerk, then I'd be able to get birthright access for a procurement clerk across the entire landscape beyond S/4HANA, but also including those cloud platforms. So with ControlPanelGRC, we're taking all of the same stuff that we've done inside of S/4HANA, and we're now applying it to the cloud products, which is definitely a trend that we're seeing in the industry, and it's helping our customers be future-proofed.
Awesome. Thank you for that information, Scott. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks again, Scott, for joining me today. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Cloud Forecast. If you have any questions, feedback, or would like more information, reach out to us at s24.podcast@global.ntt or give us a call at 1-800-332-0076, and we'd be happy to talk to you. Until next time, thanks for listening.